Hey sellers, once you put your home on the market and you start having showings, you are going to want to know what the buyers thought of your house after they walked through it. You want to know the feedback. I'm Bethany Warnches, real estate agent with Addison Jones, and you are watching Tuesday Talks with Bethany, where I answer real estate FAQs. Today, I'm going to talk about feedback. How do you get your feedback after the showing? When do you get your feedback after the showing? What is that time frame? And then what kinds of feedback can you expect to get? So first of all, let's talk about how do you get your feedback? Well, at Addison Jones, we use an app called Showing Time, and there are many other agents and firms that use this app as well. This app allows us to schedule our showings, and then once a showing is scheduled, it sends out a notification to the buyer's agent once that appointment is up, and it asks them to leave feedback. So as soon as that buyer's agent fills that out easily on their phone, it goes back to the listing agent. And then I, as the listing agent, can forward it on to you. So it can come back to you easily through the app. It can also come to you through text, through email, and maybe for my sellers who are not as into technology, maybe it's where I just get the feedback myself. I pick up the phone and I give you a phone call. So when you are waiting for this feedback, what can you expect for a timeline? There is that natural inclination to want to know immediately how the showing went, but that's not necessarily realistic. So first of all, timeline, you have to think that a buyer just walked through the house. Are they going to make an immediate decision? Now, I know on this market that's definitely happening a lot, but it doesn't always happen. So maybe you are having 5 days for showings and they just saw it and they know they don't necessarily have to make a decision immediately. So they want to sleep on it one night and maybe you're going to hear tomorrow. Or maybe there were 2 houses they were seeing and they're trying to make a decision between 2 of them. Or maybe it's where they want to talk to a trusted person about it, or they want to bring a trusted person back through for a second showing. Or maybe it's even where the agent, they did the showing, but then they have other things they have to work on during the day and they don't have time to fill out the feedback until the next day. Sometimes agents, even if they show on the weekends, they won't fill out their feedback until Monday. So it depends on what the buyer is thinking and how much time they need to make a decision. It also depends on the agent and how timely they are. So myself, as a listing agent, how I typically handle this is after a showing occurs, I give the agent 24 hours to leave feedback. And if they don't leave feedback within that 24 hours, then I will reach out. I typically just send them a text and I say, hey, thank you for showing 123 Main Street yesterday at 3 p.m. If you wouldn't mind, please leave feedback for my sellers so they know how the showing went. Thank you. And then the agent will do with that what they may. They may go fill it out, or they may just give me a text response where I relay the message to you of what the buyer thought, or they may just be completely unresponsive. So that kind of leads into what kind of feedback are you going to get? So that first one of getting no feedback at all can happen. And that's when I have reached out and followed up and the agent just doesn't respond. And no response usually means that the buyer is not interested and we're gonna take it as a no. Other types of feedback, you might get some common short phrases that come through that aren't too much detail. Things like too much work or too much work for the price, not the right fit for the buyer, favorite home of the day. Maybe they looked at 2 of them and it was the favorite, or looked at 3 and it was the favorite. Added to the list of possibilities, but they want to keep looking. or, the layout didn't work, something like that. Just short little phrases that don't really give us too much information. So depending on what other feedback we're getting, maybe it's where I'm going to follow up with them, depending. Other vague feedback, which that was kind of vague, but other vague feedback can be not interested. And so, the buyer's not interested, but it doesn't really tell us anything about the house. It doesn't tell us why they weren't interested. So the feedback that we really love is the constructive feedback. So that's when the buyer goes through the house and they've talked with their agent, or their agent is able to pick up on what they like, what they don't like, and they can leave feedback behind for you that's constructive. So say your kitchen was a bright red color and you've had 4 people mention it in their showing feedback. Well, that's something that you can change. You can paint your kitchen. So that's good to have that. Or maybe some people have said, the yard is too small. Well, that's something we can't change. But if it's a consistent theme, then maybe we know for the price that we're at, that yard size isn't going to work, and maybe it's time to come down. So feedback can be constructive and helpful. And, sometimes it's maybe hard to read some of those things, and some of it can be blunt and honest, but ultimately we're trying to sell your house. We're trying to showcase a good product. And it's important to pay attention to the feedback, and really look for, are there any themes coming through it versus just a one-off feedback being left. Also, when it comes to feedback, we can get writing an offer feedback. And I would say in this market, that's become pretty common. So we might just get feedback that says writing an offer, or maybe you get feedback after the offer was written and it just says offer written, or maybe you don't get feedback at all, but you have an offer come in, and that's because the agent was just focused on writing the offer versus leaving feedback. And the difference between completely non-responsive agent and that agent is they just put their priorities on writing that offer, and they've communicated to me that they're writing. So that's still good. Then when it comes to open houses, after I host an open house, I will usually either give you a phone call and let you know how it went, or I will type up an email and let you know how it went, so you have a good idea what came out of your open house, and if there's anyone that's super interested, or if it was just the lookers or the starter outers or the people getting decoration ideas, so you have a good idea of how the open house went, or comments and thoughts that people said as they went through. So feedback is very important. We want to be paying attention to feedback because, like I said, it can help us know if there's anything we can maybe adjust. And then it's also important to pay attention to our showings and our showing activity that we're getting, because these two things will help us understand as we continue to move forward in the market if there are things that we need to do to the home, or if we possibly need to drop our price. So that's why feedback and showings coming through are so important. So thank you for joining me today, sellers. I will be coming back in 2 weeks to talk more about the appraisal. So I will see you then.